Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make rum raisin ice cream, and this is what it looks like. It starts with a silky smooth vanilla ice cream, and then we're going to add some rum-soaked dark raisins and golden raisins along with some chopped toasted pecans. This one, it's hard to stop eating. So we are going to start by making our vanilla ice cream, which is really a custard. And just 4 ingredients. We have cream, egg yolks, sugar, and vanilla. That's it. So to start, you will need a saucepan, and you will need 2 cups, which is 480 milliliters, 480 grams of, I'm using half and half cream, which means it's half milk, half cream. If you cannot find half and half, some people say they can't, then what you can do is use 1 cup each of whole milk and a light cream. So that is essentially half and half. So either one. So I'm just going to put this into our saucepan. And I just like to add just a pinch of salt. Now this is vanilla, so ice cream. So if you want, you can either use a vanilla bean, so just take your vanilla beans, slit it, and then take out the seeds and put them into the cream. Or, for convenience sake, I'm using, well, you can either use a pure vanilla extract. I'm going to use a pure vanilla bean paste. I'll talk about that later. You don't want to add that now. We're going to add that at the end. But if you use vanilla bean, you want to add the seeds now. So what I'm going to do is just put this over medium-high heat. We are going to bring it up just to a boil, which means it's just about ready to foam up. Got to watch it. We don't want it to spill over. And while that's heating up, in a you want a heat-proof bowl. I've got stainless steel here. 5 large egg yolks, and that'd be 90 grams of yolks. The yolks are going to give us that really silky smooth texture to our ice cream. And then sugar, 2/3 of a cup, 135 grams. Put that in there. And then I'm doing this by hand. I'm just, with a wire whisk, I'm going to mix these 2 together until it becomes kind of thick and lighter in color. You could get out your hand mixer, but we could all do with a little arm exercise, I think. So I'm going to do it by hand. Okay, it's almost there. Okay, it's starting to foam up. So quickly get that off the heat. So now this is our egg yolks and sugar. As you can see, it's nice and thick, pale color. So now what I'm going to do is add that really hot cream to our egg yolks. Now we don't want to add it all at once. We're going to add just a little to what is called temper, and use your whisk. And you want to whisk the whole time. So just add a little. All this, and then okay, and then you can slowly add while you're whisking the whole time. And that's okay. So now what we have to do, oh, just one thing. If you did happen to get a little bit of cooked egg in there, you could just strain it now. So don't worry, don't panic if you do have a few lumps. It happens. So what I'm going to do now, we have to cook this, but I don't want to cook it directly on the burner. I want to do it over simmering water. So I'm just going to bring this up to a simmer, take a couple minutes, and then we will cook our custard. Okay, so I'm almost up to a simmer. So now what we're going to do is put this over the heat. Now we're going to cook the custard until it reaches 170 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 77 degrees Celsius. Now you could use, my favorite is the probe thermometer, but you can also use the mercury, either one. Or if you don't have one, it's till it's really thick and it would coat the back of your, either spatula or wooden spoon. I'll show you that too. Now when you cook your custard, you have to stir it the whole time because we don't want to get any, again, cooked pieces. So keep it moving. Okay, we are at 170. Take it off the heat. Give it a good stir. So if you don't have a thermometer, which I do recommend, it's when you you'll have a streak, do you see, and it kind of stays like that. That's how you can tell if you don't have a thermometer. So now, I didn't use, as I said at the beginning, if you had a vanilla bean, you put the seeds in at the beginning, but I'm using a vanilla bean paste. You could use 1.5 teaspoons of either a pure vanilla extract, that's 6 grams, either a pure vanilla extract or a vanilla bean paste. The reason I like a vanilla bean paste, it's kind of the best of both worlds. I have the convenience of an extract, but the vanilla bean paste has the little, you can't see it, but the little seeds of a vanilla bean. So it looks like and it's much more convenient. I always have vanilla bean paste in the house. I don't always have vanilla beans, like I don't today. So, something you may want to buy. And then now that was easy, really. This is your vanilla ice cream, essentially. Now what we have to do is we have to chill it, and then we freeze it. One, you don't want to put, most home ice cream machines, you have like a base, like a bowl that you freeze, and then you put your custard in there and it churns. Well, you don't want to put a hot custard into that because it'd take a while for your chilled base to bring that down and then freeze it. And by the time the base heats up, you might not get a really firm or a really soft ice cream, what you want. So what we do first is chill it down. So that way when we put it into our machine, we get ice cream at the end. Not like soup. So I'm just putting this in a bowl. And if you didn't understand that, it'll make sense when I show you my ice cream machine in a minute. So what I like to do is put it in a bowl. I'm going to cover it and let it come down to room temperature and then put it into my refrigerator. Now, you could just put it in there for till it's cold, maybe 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours. But my preference is to let it chill overnight, like up to 24 hours. And that way, not only does it get it really cold, but it will develop the flavor and texture. So I think you get a much nicer ice cream at the end. So that's what I'm going to do, and then I'll put that in the fridge, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to do those rum-soaked raisins. So now for our rum-soaked raisins. I like to do this probably a day before. I like them to sit probably 24 hours so the raisins really absorb that rum and get that wonderful flavor. Sometimes this is like my favorite ice cream. I used to make, this is one when I was a kid, we'd go to the store and I'd want rum raisin. Now I kind of say, did they actually use rum? Real rum? But I love the flavor. So now in a small saucepan, I'm going to use a combination, 1/4 cup, 40 grams of dark raisins and 1/4 cup, 40 grams of golden raisins. I like the combination. If you have a preference, then you could just use one or the other. But I like to use the variety. And then I'm adding a half a cup, 120 milliliters, grams of rum, which I can really smell. I'm using dark rum. I like the taste and the flavor of a dark rum. You don't have to. You could use a light or an amber, whatever you have in the house. And then what I like to do is just bring this up. Just really what I'm doing is warming up that rum to give it a head start. So it'll start softening and soaking into those raisins. Okay, the rum's warm. Take it off the heat. Now you can see here that all the raisins are underneath the rum right now. I'm going to, once that cools down, I'm going to cover it and just leave it at room temperature like this. Like I said, I like to do it for about 24 hours. Now, I would check it, maybe after 12 hours. If your raisins, like my raisins are really soft and plump, but if yours were like, say, a little dry, a little old, what you may find is they may absorb all of the rum. So at that point, you could add just a little more rum in there to cover it. But otherwise, it should be fine. And so that's what I'm going to do for that. And then I like to add some toasted pecans. I don't know, you've got that vanilla flavor of the ice cream. You got the rum-soaked raisins, the buttery caramel flavor of the pecans. I'm in heaven. Not only the taste, but the texture. You got the silky smooth vanilla ice cream. You got the chewy kind of rum-soaked raisins and the pecans, the crunch of the pecans. So I do like to toast them. That really brings out their flavor. So you need to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. Put them on a baking sheet and then toast them, I'd say about 8-10 minutes, just until they're lightly brown. And really, you can tell whatever type of nut you're using, you can tell it's done because you can start to smell it. And then I've already done this, so take them out, let them cool down completely, and then just coarsely chop them like that. So we have that ready. We have that. If you don't want to use pecans, if you don't want to have nuts in your rum raisin ice cream, you just leave it out. Or you could, walnuts I think would be just as good as the pecans. So that's that, and we will see you back here tomorrow, and we will churn our vanilla ice cream. So we are now ready to churn our ice cream. The first thing that you need to do is to drain your raisins. And then I just put them in a bowl. And what I like to do, we're going to add the raisins and the pecans at the end of our churn. So I want them really cold so they don't soften our ice cream. So I'm going to put both of these things in the freezer while we're churning. So now, ice cream machines. There are lots. I'm actually not going to tell you which brand is best because I don't know. I just have mine, the one I use. I'm using a 2-quart, which is a 2-liter ice cream machine. I like the larger size, and usually for the home cook, this is the type. You have this really round container. You put this into the freezer, usually at least the day before, and get it really, really cold, and then it goes in here. Now, for this amount of custard, you could actually use a 1-quart, 1-liter ice cream machine. I used to, but the problem I find is this, as you churn it, it warms up this base. And if I use a 1-quart, 1-liter ice cream machine, I find it, by the time that warms up, my ice cream is kind of soupy still. But if I use like a big one like this, I find I get a pretty, like a soft serve ice cream. So that's why I'm using the larger one. Now, if you only have the 1-quart, that's okay. What you will have to do is once you churn and that warms up, you will have to take your ice cream and put it in the freezer for a few hours, and then it'll just firm up and it'll be fine. So you put the in there, and then we turn it on, and I'm going to pour this in. Typically, with an ice cream machine, somewhere between, I would say, 25 to 35 minutes, or until you get a nice soft serve, or that your base warms up and it doesn't freeze it anymore. You'll know. So just pour it in and let it make you some ice cream. So it's been about 25 minutes. My ice cream is kind of almost soft serve. So now I'm going to add my raisins and my nuts. I'm going to gradually add. And then I'm going to let it churn for a couple more minutes until they're all mixed in. Okay, so it's been half hour. So I think we're done. Yeah. So, oh, boy. The danger is once you start eating this, it's hard to stop. So scrape this as much as you can. And I did, whatever you're going to store your ice cream in, I did put my bowl in the freezer while I was churning my ice cream, get that really cold. You can scrape that better at home. And pour this. So this is using the 2-quart ice cream machine. See, I got soft serve, which I like because then I can eat it right away. If yours, you know, like I said, if you're using a smaller machine, it might be softer than this, but don't worry. Just put it in your container. I'll scrape the rest of that later. Just put the into your container and put it into the freezer for a couple hours, and it'll firm up. But okay, yes, it could benefit from, if you want a really firm ice cream, from an hour or two. But hey, you got to try. Somebody's got to try it. Now I know you can buy some really high-end ice creams out there, but really making your own, you really can't beat it. The vanilla custard, the ice cream is so silky smooth on your tongue. It is just wonderful. And then you have those rum-soaked raisins, and then the crunch of the buttery caramel flavor pecans. I just think it's a wonderful, wonderful ice cream. Now, a few things. One, when you go to store your ice cream, even if you have a covered container, which I normally use, but today I just use a bowl, what you want to do is take plastic wrap and press it down onto your ice cream. And then you would put, if you have a cover, put the lid on. And you do that to prevent ice crystals from forming. That's why I put the plastic wrap like that, because sometimes that can be a problem. And a few other things. Now, when I drained my raisins, I had some rum left over. Some people like to add some rum to the custard before they churn it. I don't, for a couple of reasons. One, I like the distinct flavors of the vanilla ice cream, the rum-soaked raisins, and the pecan. I don't want to blur the flavors there. Some people want to double up on that rum flavor and put it in your custard. You could put 1 to 2 tablespoons, but just remember, alcohol prevents freezing. So Your ice cream may not freeze as hard if you do add like a couple tablespoons of rum. But the good thing about adding rum to the raisins is it prevents the raisins from freezing to like little hard rocks. If you didn't soak them, then they do freeze really hard. So that's the advantage of using the alcohol in the fruit, but not in the custard. But anyways, you can play around with that and do it however you want. But really, you can store this quite a few days. Really though, I'll tell you, it will not last quite a few days. And it's nice on its own. I would think a scoop with apple pie or an apple crisp or even a bread pudding. Or on its own. You have to try this one. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com.